Okay, I think we'll make a start. We'll let other folks trickle in as we go along. But yeah, I just want to say welcome to everyone. This is our Journeys to Efficient Housing webinar. A slightly different kind of webinar style, I suppose. We'll be kind of having a more conversational style webinar between housing champions Drae Azak of Nisga'a Lisims Government and Richard Paul of Nuxalk Nation. We hope this webinar will bring you insights from across the mentoring life cycle, and we'll be drawing on experiences of kind of mentors and mentees alike in advancing energy efficiency. This webinar will focus on the pathways to efficient housing and be centered very much on the experiences of our speakers, whether they have 35 or 5 years in the field. We hope this event will highlight the benefits of a mentoring relationship and how it is an essential piece of the puzzle when constructing sustainable, healthy, cultural, appropriate housing for the future. We'll leave some room for around 15 minutes for a Q&A at the end, so feel free to write those questions down or add them to the Q&A chat box. I want to start this session by doing a land acknowledgement. I'll be acknowledging that we're very fortunate to be able to gather on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. I'm calling from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, formerly known as Vancouver. I thank the Coast Salish peoples for having cared for these lands and waters for thousands of years and value the opportunity to learn, share, and grow on this territory. As a visitor on this land from the UK, I strive to deepen my knowledge and understanding of local indigenous communities and feel committed to constantly reframing my responsibilities to land and the community. I'll hand over to Richard as well to say a few words. I believe you're on mute there, Richard.
Good day, welcome everybody. Welcome New Hawk territories here in the Great Bay Rainforest. I'll just give you a little preamble before I start my prayer. So I never learned to pray again after the residential school experience. I followed my grandmother's final wish to forgive the church for the wrongful path. I forgave the church and they've forgiven my abusers. And if I harmed you, please forgive me. I believe there's a creator though. I believe he lives in me and he lives in all of us, all of his children. He shares himself as light and he takes that light that shines, and that light shines through my eyes. He takes that light, he takes me to my final resting place. Here's the prayer. Creator, we thank you for gathering here today as we explore, network, and learn from each other, and bless the ones participating in this webinar. We thank you for providing clean air, water, and blue skies. We thank you for the natural medicine, plants, animals, mammals, and the sea life in which we thrive and live upon. We pray for the ones that are compromised by illness, sickness, and are stricken by the war. We pray for the ones that are struggling with addictions and other health challenges. We also pray for the ones in our healthcare system that we're symbol. We pray for the ones that are lost in the street and the ones taken away from their parents, the little ones. We pray for the families who lost loved ones and are finally found. I say, in much love and peace, God bless our elders, the residential school survivors, and let us not forget the children of the survivors. Thank you for this day. Away.
Thank
All
you.
yours.
Thank you, Richard. That was beautifully delivered. Thank you so much. Before we get into the webinar, just a little bit of information on who we are and what we're about. So I'm we are the hosts today, Fraser Basin Council, and essentially we're a sustainability non-profit which is committed to advancing sustainability across British Columbia. Within our various work programs, we have the First Nations Home EnergySave program that's been running for almost 6 years now, with the aim of kind of supporting First Nations communities in transitioning towards energy efficient housing. Our mission is to kind of support peer learning and share success stories among First Nations communities to reduce home energy use and build local capacity. And just so you're aware of our team, you have myself, the program lead for First Nations Home EnergySave, Tanya, who's the program manager, and Erin, who is also on the call today, providing tech support as well. And you can access our website, which has lots of great links to community case studies, training opportunities, past recordings of webinars and training that we've delivered, and also you can subscribe to our newsletter. We've got some great kind of videos on our website. I'm going to reference a favorite of mine, which was something we delivered for our Train the Trainer program. That actually involved Richard and an architect called David Wong, and it was focused on resilient and affordable building design. So I encourage you guys to check that out one. Yeah, there's lots of great insights from that one there. Okay. And yeah, I just want to thank our funders as well, who very kindly put money towards our First Nations Home EnergySave program. Those include the Real Estate Foundation, BC, the Province of British Columbia, BC Hydro, and also Fortis BC. And just to cover kind of general logistics, so we encourage you to stay muted for the actual webinar, but invite you all to ask questions in the Q&A box. And if you're having any problems with tech issues, then feel free to reach out to Erin Pedersen on her email, which is displayed there. Okay. And yeah, we have our two speakers today, coming at slightly different ends of the mentoring kind of life cycle. Richard brings, well, vast experience within the field. I think over 35. Sorry to show your age a little bit there, Richard, but yeah, he's lots of experience within indigenous housing. It's a Red Seal carpenter and builder and capital project and housing manager. And it's very committed to now designing and building affordable, sustainable, and energy efficient homes that complement the needs and cultural lifestyles of First Nations people. Drae Azak works for Nisga'a Lisims Government as a housing specialist, assisting the 4 Nisga'a villages applying for funds, helping to create and amend housing policy, and also provide technical support and input where needed. And yeah, we'll kick things off here with a poll just to get folks warmed up. So before we start the webinar, yeah, it'd be good to get an idea of what your priorities are at the moment within your community, and you can pick more than one of these answers here as well. The votes are coming in. Looking like it's up, retrofitting housing is a big one, and new builds by the looks of it. And another one, yeah, is also creating jobs or training opportunities in construction. I think that's, you know, an important part of the package as well. And I've certainly got a great person, you know, in Richard on the line to talk a bit bit more about that as well. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll here, and we're going to get right into the session. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a question, well, to both Richard and Drae, and then I'm going to kind of give the floor to both of those, to Drae and Richard, and they will kind of take it from there. But Drae, maybe if you want to answer this first, and Richard, I suppose you can take on the question next. But what does mentorship mean to you? And how have you gained from it personally, or within your projects?
So personally for me, especially in the housing arena, I've only been part of it now for 11 months. Tom, you mentioned I was the housing specialist for Nisga'a Lisims Government, currently moved into the management role for Longterm Vision Village Government as their capital housing and infrastructure manager. And the important part of mentorship is, well, for me, is finding someone that you know knows more than you and just picking their brain as much as possible so that you can bring up, your level of understanding and comprehension closer to theirs, not exactly to what their level is. I could sit with Richard for 24 hours a day in the next, 6 months and not even come close to knowing everything that he knows. But the important part is finding a person that can be your mentor, is willing to be your mentor, and then showing them that you want to actually learn from them. That's the important part for me. And as it applies to the projects that I've worked on so far, my previous director had been working for almost a decade on the universal housing policy for the Nisga'a Nation, which we'll probably get into later on. But he was working on that for nearly a decade, and with his help and with the help of my manager, the three of us were able to combine all of our our know-how and expertise to finally get it done and push through the political level and have the village governments agree on it. So it's about the exchange of knowledge and then applying it as well.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. And yeah, I think with mentorship as well, I think they certainly would have benefited from your kind of fresh pair of eyes on things as well. So it works both ways from my understanding. Yeah, and Richard, I'll put the question out to you. So yeah, what does mentorship mean to you, and how have you kind of personally gained from it, whether that's yourself or within the projects that you've been delivering over the years?
Yeah, it's important to address the state of where we're in today, and mentorship is a key component to passing on knowledge. In 35 years of housing and as a apprentice, as a laborer, apprentice, and a carpenter and inspector, and had a vast playground of BC to look at. I think I learned a lot. And to me, I saw people struggling and reinventing the wheel, doing things over and over and over again. That was madness and craziness. And I was pretty much handcuffed to not present the feedback or present them an opportunity to do something different. And when I retired and I moved on, I said, now the handcuffs are off. I'm going to start helping First Nations develop something that's suitable and sustainable for their region, for their lifestyle, for, just to have a healthy home and healthy children and healthy culture. So I started to work, and I knew if I didn't do this work, who would do it? and had so much knowledge to give. I said, yeah, I think that's the most valuable pieces of information I can give to society and our people. And to this program, I'm grateful for that. And many that know me on this webinar is just, yeah, I'm very compassionate to helping our First people in the housing component because we suffered a long time. But paying it forward, passing your knowledge and skill to others. And I encourage all the ones in this webinar to do the same. And welcome, Drae.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, that's really poignant, kind of taking on that sense of responsibility of, you know, all that information that you have and sharing it to make life more kind of streamlined, easier for others as well. The floor is yours, guys, now. You won't hear from me for a while. And yeah, I'll leave it up to you to kind of ask questions and take it from here. So yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, Richard. I guess I'll just get started with my myriad of questions here. First, I just knowing about some of the projects and things you've gotten off the ground in Bella Coola, when you're building a structure or a framework for efficiency, what's your starting point to identifying deficiencies as they relate to the specific climate of your community? So you see the issues in the old homes that were built, you know, the CMHC stuff. How did you gather the data to say, this is what we need to do with our new builds and how are we going to address this in the future?
Like, in my mind, there's many answers to this question, but I want to go a little bit further back and say, you know, building a structure for efficiency. And I want to be clear in the relationship between construction of the homes and the minimum standard criteria and occupants. It all starts with poorly selected materials and to protect the buildings, and the minimum standard, building standard, and the modest criteria that was a model that was created for our First people. And the disconnect, and we have to take responsibility of disconnect of teaching between the children and the adult because of the system was placed by the government and the Churches of Canada. For a building, for a building, you have to learn to recognize and through visual inspection, signs of deterioration from the wind-driven rain, saturation of moisture, the thinness of the building envelope. So there's significant signs of spots, gray spots, black lines, citing rapid deterioration of wood. The building envelope will also reveal the soft spots, wavy siding, separation of nails to members. This is because of poorly selected materials. And black lines are substandard practices that happens quite often when we don't have the resources to build our own homes. You learn to recognize the roofing system because it displays significant moss buildup. And that means it's a poor product or there's a lack of ventilation or just poor substandard building practices. Staining on the roof shingles is probably most likely poor product. So you learn to recognize those things after a while. And there's another phenomenon happening that causes when you look at a building through visual inspection, you start to see the black lines on the building, and that shows there's activity happening from inside to the outside called thermal bridging, which is transfer of heat loss through the structural members, and that shows that the building has been compromised by the wind-driven rain or the elements. Inside the home, you'll see visible lines appear in the ceiling perimeter and exterior walls. And another good sign for a loss of thermal bridging and condition interior finish are revealed through visual inspection. And there's a phenomenon called ghosting. You can't really see it until you learn to recognize it. And once you see it, it's best highlighted with a camera or even a moisture meter. Causes are erratic temperature changes and poor practices and building and poor practices and application of materials. And you're going to hear this over and over and over again as I talk, because it's critical that we do things properly to create an environment that's very healthy for us. And I think in the regions and the climates that we live in, there's always something different. For the West Coast, it's the wind-driven rain, the moisture. For the interior, it's the ultraviolet. And you have to learn to recognize the damages ultraviolet can cause to the building. The siding will disintegrate, and the heat will be so intense that it'll actually create a burn mark on floors. So there's a lot of little things that you have to learn to recognize before you decide and make a plan or make a plan to create a better product. You have to deal with elements. Not only the elements, we have to deal with even the occupants and train and educate them. But the interior of the building is intensity, heat, intensity of the heat and erratic temperature changes that people don't really understand with burning appliances, because the temperatures are so erratic. It's not consistent, so erratic, and that causes a lot of problems.
So Richard, with all of these material concerns in mind, I know there was a lot of them, especially when you're doing visual inspections, you could pick them out quite easily now. What kind of mitigation efforts have you made in your designs, and how has the Nuxalk implemented this in their new builds?
Well, the selection of material has to complement the elements and the location where you are. For our new designs now, we're using a lot of more natural woods because they absorb and dissipate moisture more rapidly than gypsum wallboard, which is drywall. And for exterior walls, we're using mold-resistant drywall and mold-resistant taping, mold-resistant compound, and we're practicing new methods of heating systems, conditioned spaces, in the crawl space, in the attic space, in the habitable space. We're creating more natural ventilation practices than using all appliances that cost money to run. And we're using a lot of more high energy efficient product like LED lighting, triple pane windows, double pane windows, and more wooden doors, no melamine, no OSB. So we're taking those products that don't really complement the weather. Even our cabinets are all wooden. Everything is wooden. Nothing that's can deteriorate so rapidly, so easily because of the moisture. So that makes a big difference. But developing a new standard.
And just as we're talking about construction and implementing these, I know that you had a partnership with not a construction company, but a training company. And as the buildings you design come to construction, how long is the process of creating a partnership for the carpentry program your nation facilitated?
Well, I said the first, I'll start by saying this. The first of all, it's a long process, but it's now, we have now a kind of a baseline to follow. The hardest work you're going to do is change the perception of others, because we're so set on the system that's disabling by Indigenous Service Canada and the government. So work to change the perception of not only your elders, but the youth, but the elected membership and the children, and the children in the schools. Change their perception of what their own responsibility is. To build capacity, I connected with, I came home, I connected with the community, and I connected with ITA, the Industry Trades Association, the Aboriginal file. And the person then forwarded me off to Camosun College. And I talked to Camosun College at the time, and I said, I need your help. I need to build capacity in their community, because through surveys and visual inspections and looking at the community, and I didn't have the resources to build a community. And we could not afford to pay somebody $300 a square foot to build our homes or renovate our homes with substandard materials. It's craziness. So I said, let's use and utilize what resources we have in our community to build a community. By training and education, by mentorship. So once I connected to the colleges, they gave me an outline of what they need the space to host the program, need some parameters on what kind of working space you will have. So there's a criteria that you have to follow, and we met those. Then we started the process of recruitment. And when we started recruiting, I think we had 60-something applicants. So we had to have them write exams, entrance exams, to see where the levels of education were. And we provided the service to help them get in this program and commit to this program. We had to provide them a couple of tests and written examinations, and what surface was probably 32 eligible candidates, and we started off with 16 per class. That's the maximum the college will host. I think average cost was about $10,000 per student. That's good information, because you have a baseline, you have something to bargain with. Through that, we went through we networked and worked with Indigenous Service Canada, telling what we're doing, so we can build our own, take value of our own, and utilize our own, create some economic stimulation, create some jobs. When I came back here, I had 3 people in our office. By the time I finished with the program, I had 52 people working for me. And 52 people that had an opportunity that they couldn't get elsewhere. Not only because they were illiterate, but they were young men, young women with children that could not afford to go to school, because they had families to raise, and the conditions we were in, there were overcrowding and everything else like that. And the program provided this opportunity, but also provided them with a long long-term vision, a career. And that's important. I can't stress that more, because so many broken promises to our people was based on short little programs. Now these guys have careers, and some of the guys said to me, Richard, I don't know how many lives you saved by bringing this program in, because it changed the whole dynamic of my family, my lifestyle. But once we got connected to that, and once we got connected to the colleges, and chief and council supported it. And I said to them, I said, keep your politics away from our program. Because I know that from past history, politics was one of the worst things that destroyed any growth in the community. I said, keep politics out of the work that you do. Let the educators become educators. Let the mentors become mentors. Let them have their experience in life that this opportunity provides. So coming in, the guys, 16 people in the class, and they struggled, but we helped them by providing them with tutors, and we helped them with stipends and creating some sort of allowance so they didn't have to suffer at home, so they could focus at school. And when the classroom and the kids started bonding, they supported each other. And when the word got out, the family supported the students. And then it exploded to the community supported the students, because they now saw the big picture. And this became a huge, huge success story. But you have to put those boundaries in place to protect your own and provide them with the resources they need to be successful. Because our success rate before we brought the program was 1 in 10.
And there's two really important things out of that I'd take away right away. And you mentioned a long-term vision for, or our people having a long-term vision. And it's not that some people don't have it, it's that there's barriers in place that make it a little more difficult for some people. So I really enjoy, you love to hear that, your nation supported them through it rather than just supporting the barrier. I hear a phrase from one of my colleagues many times, and she helped a lot with the policy work that we're doing. And she likes to remind the working group and our steering committees that we have to meet people where they're at. We can't tell them you have to be here or that's it. We have to meet them where they are and bring them up to that level, or else they're just going to stay there, and it's not their fault. So we have to meet them there. And the other part about the other part about your carpentry program that is very important, especially in smaller communities, is that you're keeping the money and the wealth from these projects. It stays with your people, which is something that not a lot of us can do, right? So those are two really key important successes that you've outlined here, and thank you for sharing. Just moving a little further into the construction and how that applies to your nation, and more specifically, what kind of cost savings did the nation measure after implementing your training program alongside sourcing your own local lumber? Because I know you guys have been doing that as well too.
Yeah, it was, once we got the program underway, then Indigenous Service Canada and the government and all the support system and networking I did was not only with Indigenous Service Canada, Motion College, it was BC Hydro, Fraser Basin Council, suppliers. The networking is important, and networking with people at a higher level, like First Nations Market Housing and all these other people that supply money for First Nations housing, BC Housing, BC Hydro. is critical. It's very critical that, you know, they capture and support the work that you do, and they did. I'm grateful for that. But as we motivated ourselves into construction, and people began to hear and were calling us, "Hey, Rich, how can we help?" I said, "Hey, RDH Building Science, for example, and Rob Pope and Ecolite, they contacted me. We hear good things coming out of Bella Coola. We want to see how we can help." So I brought people in to help me design a conditioned crawl space. RDH Building Science designing me the building signs for the West Coast of BC, and others, you know, suppliers providing the carpenters tools, pencils, hearing protection, hard hats, and they all bought into this program, and it just networked well over and over. And this is important too, that we recognize that the suppliers, as they've traveled through the Caribou and people began to see their trucks coming in our Bella Coola, and they said, "Holy God, something's going on down there." And other people starting to buy into Ronan, the supplier at that time, buying into their store values and their purchases magnified by 200-300%, and they actually thanked us for that. But as we got into the design of the buildings and everything else like that, my role as a builder and an inspector, and my role as a investigator, I taught and mentored the guys into building science and building design and building practices. So you have to have invest in a champion to help you do that, and somebody that's committed to doing what I did throughout the years. But as we got into the building and the building designs and the materials were selected, and the teaching and the roles of responsibilities were given to each apprentice, each laborer, and each carpenter, it created huge cost savings, where we're building at $300 a square foot to $110 a square foot for residential units. Commercial units we're building from $150 to $200 a square foot, where we're paying $500-600 a square foot, where it is today again. But those were the cost savings. Then we had people come in to help us design buildings. Right now, that's in the works for timber framing, to design utilizing our resources to benefit the nation. Not only did we create 52 jobs, but we created a gravel pit, a sawmill, a logging operation that the money stays in the community, creates that economic balance. Now they're just putting together, and that was in our plan, a concrete batch plant where the savings are horrific because of where we are. I mean, we're at the end of the road, basically, and I find that we pay a lot of costs, high costs, like many others too, because they don't have their own economic resource or economic opportunities or training, have the people trained to do the work. And that's what really makes it, I think, affordable to have your own build what you need. But the cost savings were horrific, and the economics are still ongoing today.
Just to jump on the concrete right away, we're kind of in the same boat. We're about an hour and 10 minutes away from the nearest concrete plant, but the supply isn't the issue. It's the other large projects in the area. So there's a new hospital going up in Terrace, and then the Kitimat LNG project. So we only need 20 cubic meters of concrete, they look at us like, you guys can just wait. Don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about networking, I really think that's more important than people think it is, because when you start a carpentry program like yours and you want to build efficient homes, you're creating this ball of momentum, right? And the more people you gain, more applicants you have, people want to join that momentum and add on to that success, right? So the more people you network with, the more people you have to hop on that success train and really build a bigger win than you thought imaginable, right? So I really thank you for sharing that. On the topic of efficiency, actually, what you've done is you've actually created a lot of literacy, especially in your community, but outside of it, you've helped me personally. When you're doing that though, what kind of community engagement made a meaningful impact in generating buy-in on the projects? And I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but specifically on energy efficiency, well, what did you have to do to get the community to buy into it?
Well, I put it in a simple form, a layman's form. Would you rather, if we often have to make a choice in life as we go through everyday living, and the choice is, do I buy food today, or what do I buy fuel for my house? Because the new homes that we designed here are costing $1.50 a day. At one time, they cost $12 to $15 a day. And we shouldn't have to make that choice. By developing energy efficient homes where we are today with a new type of homes where we're paying $1 a day, we have that flexibility to buy a good, healthy meal for our children. And it's sad that those days, and I still see it today, that I can't afford fruit. But today we can. And by designing the energy efficient homes, you have that choice. You have that choice. You can feed your children, or feed your loved ones for that matter. But we shouldn't have to make that choice. And I think it was the easy message to translate to others. Is that let's stop doing the things that don't work for us and do some things that are more efficient for us to benefit from. And like I said, the hardest work you're going to do is change the perception of others. And say, prove it. And we did. The guys who work in there, they're building homes that are just amazing. And people came in and says, wow, look at the workmanship here. We're utilizing what resources we have to benefit the nation. The logs, we make our shiplap, we make our lumber, the gravel to make the concrete. And we never had that opportunity before. Indigenous Service Canada regional director stood up in a crowd of 180 bands and said, today I get to say, for the first time in history, utilize what resources you can to benefit the nation. Before that, we had to pay everybody to come in and do our building for us. I about fell off my chair. Everybody was doing what they're doing, and I stood up and I actually almost jumped up in my seat and I said, can you repeat what you just said? Because I knew that was one of the biggest challenges we had in this community. We weren't allowed to fall a tree to create lumber. He says, utilize what resources you can to benefit your nation. Now, you said that the second time. Can you elaborate and explain what that really means? Just you can fall a tree to make your lumber, use the gravel to make concrete. And I said, holy smokes, that was a game changer in my life. And I said, my people are not going to believe you just said that. And I asked the regional director of Indigenous Service Canada to come to Bella Coola and say that to our elected chief and council and people, and he did. And that opened the doors for many things to happen, for many things to explore. And then Indigenous Service Canada saw what was happening here and they supported it. Because that is a solution to fixing the shortfall of our home. Not only to educate our people, but to empower them to take back their identity, which leads to the culture and the traditional lifestyle. It was amazing, and my mind just went, wow, here we go.
There's a small point. You said you brought him to your community to speak to the chief and council to get him to say it himself. My previous manager and director, we laugh about it all the time. We have ideas and things like that for energy efficiency and these solutions, but no one wants to listen to us. They'll take it from somebody else, but they won't listen to us, right?
Right. Yeah, that's one of the, I think that systemic relationship that we have with the diverse team of diverse people out there. Yeah, and that's, you know, like I said, change the perception of the people that you work with. Grant them to say, this is what I want in my life, and this is what I need in my life. Give them back what they need. Just enable them, don't disable them. That's what I say. Bottom line.
It's riding that fine line between here's what I would like you to do, and this is what you need to do right now. The tonality and the way that you say things are really important to people, and kind of riding that line and not crossing over onto one side too much is a really difficult task. Actually, on that note, we're trying to educate people on what kind of renovations are important or should be important to them, especially if you have high hydro bills. There's a lot of heat loss in the home. Should you get new countertops right away and new floors? Probably not. I think you should replace your windows. Well, why the heck would I replace my windows when I can still see through them, right? So just kind of creating a little more understanding and literacy in that kind of arena is, you know, the small wins that we can have with homeowners especially, but.
Yeah, energy efficiency was a new model, step code is a new model. And I've taken all that training for it and implemented it. And at the position I was in the corporate world, they gave me that opportunity to learn a lot, but I couldn't really preach it because of the handcuffs and the liabilities attached. And today we're working to develop and evolve with new insights that will benefit your nation. And the model that we created and the model that we're working on is a booklet. It's a building standard that we are using for the West Coast people. And the booklet we used and evolved, handed out to different nations, that's a model, that's a template. Now develop that template to suit your needs, not my needs, your needs and your community needs. I stress that because the plateau is different from the West Coast of BC. And to design an energy efficient home in the plateau, it's a lot easier than designing a home on the West Coast of BC that's energy efficient, because the moisture content here is horrific. I guess on the scale of 1 to 10, we're 10. And then interior plateau, it's the ultraviolet and the cold, which is a dry cold, not a moist cold. People don't really understand that. But beyond the modest criteria, we're develop a new standard of building, and that's what we're here to talk about. And that's what we've done here. And the best part of it, we have our own resources and our own people building it, which claims a better ownership. Not that DIA or CMHC owes me. They don't owe us anything. You owe it to yourself to change what you're doing with your people and your membership. and invest in them. That's the long-term vision.
Thanks, Richard. Really appreciate your answers. I'm kind of drawing a blank now, but you mentioned the training. The Nisga'a Nation actually has a Nisga'a Employment Skills and Training Service or department that we're hoping to work in partnership quickly. We have a 4-year action plan with the goal to spend $220 some odd million in new builds and infrastructure. So creating a program like yours that supports and uplifts our own people is very important to us. So continually seek your help and mentorship in the coming days, months, and years. So.
Yeah, you know, it's like I said, I'm not here to twist your arm. I'm here to provide you with an insight of what I learned in 35 years. And I know there's many, many more people in this webinar that will agree with me. Ernie Westgarth's on here, Leo Hebert. He saw what I saw as inspectors, and they're doing their part. But it's like I said, we're dropping a pebble in the pond, and this ripple effect is going to go a long way. And that's why I believe that mentorship is the best opportunity for us to all grow. Why reinvent the wheel when we got the wheel? Just develop the wheel to suit your needs, not my needs, your needs, not the government's needs, not CMHC's needs, not Indian Affairs needs, your needs, because you're the ones living in those homes. You're the one that's going to have and pass that asset on to the ones yet unborn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Drae, I know it's overwhelming to hear all this information, and I encourage you to write the questions down. Those ones listening today, write them down, pass them on to Tom. And I know that my experience showed me all different types of challenges I saw First Nations and had in the past, and here's an opportunity for change. And I've been to probably about 180 communities as an inspector in BC. And I've inspected probably 6,000 to 7,000 homes. And I put this thing together to see for change. And I got a couple of questions for you, Drae. As self-governing nations, what are the challenges in housing related to creating a building standard? Is it not enough information, or is it political?
That's a fun first question. So the Nisga'a Nation is comprised of 4 villages, Gilachnamics, Drae Azak, and Gingol. When I first started, I started in May of this last year, May 2021. And immediately we were thrown into steering the universal housing policy and getting the 4 villages to cooperate and then agree on it. Those are 2 very difficult things to do when you have 4 separate legal entities and that all want their own policy, that all speak specifically to them. And we had to do 3 housing and infrastructure retreats so that we could get the working group, which is all of the managers, and then the steering committee, which is the CAOs or CFOs of each village, including Nisga'a Lisims Government Director of Capital, Housing and Facilities Management, and then the Nisga'a Lisims Government Housing and Facilities Manager. So with the working group and steering committee, and then 3 retreats and constant contact with one another, after about 8 months, we came to an agreement on the universal housing policy, which it didn't only take 8 months. My previous director had been working on it since September 2013, had a first draft in 2015. And since then it's been kind of stalled because everybody wants something that speaks specifically to them. As it applies to building standards, the housing policy speaks to it, but it gives power to the villages to create that standard for themselves. So that's important because when I talk about my community, which is Nuxalk, and then the community I work for in Drae Azak, there's higher heats in the summertime in Nuxalk, and there's far heavier rain events in Drae Azak in the springtime. So last year they experienced 140 millimeters of rain in 7 hours. How do we build new homes that can withstand those extremes and then dissipate that moisture after it comes to them? I'm getting ahead of myself. Is it not enough information, or is it political? Sorry. It's a little bit of both. So we were rapidly gathering data, and then we have to analyze it. And then once we have it, we have to report. And then once it's reported and approved by the village government, then there's levels of, there's political levels that it has to go through. So the village governments will approve it. Then it goes to the Nisga'a Lisims Government Finance Committee, which is made up of representatives of the 4 councils. Once Finance Committee approves it, goes to executive has to approve it. And then once the Nisga'a Lisims Government Executive approves it, it goes to Nisga'a, which is all of our elected councillors and the executive for the Nisga'a Nation. Once it's approved by, we call it WSN, then it can be enacted. Right now, we are waiting for the next Nisga'a for it to be approved, and then our housing policy is enacted. Intercom, sorry about that.
I heard that. Yeah, I think you're on the right track. What scares me is that the approach. Yeah, 4 different dances. And trying to fit 4 different dancers in one square box. And that's a hard goal. By creating a building standard that will complement that, yes, the research has to be done. Yes, I agree. But keep a political agenda out of it and develop the government as authority having jurisdiction to manage it.
And that was identified by one of my previous coworkers as to why it stalled. They were having housing retreats about the policy and about the building standard, but they were including chief and council. It should be strictly administrative, which is the change that we made back last summer. As soon as that happened, we made just swaths of progress month by month. We were moving so quickly, and that's because we completely removed any representatives from chief and council from doing the work, because we were supposed to do the work. Administration does the work, not them.
Yeah, and that probably leads me that what are you prepared to do differently to address the shortfall and upgrades to the existing homes? How can you make it affordable?
So the Nisga'a Nation currently has a memorandum of understanding with BC Housing and BC Hydro. Through that MOU that created the steering committee and then the working group. Part of our task is to complete building condition assessments, which are high-level assessments of the homes in all 4 communities. It's about 750 homes throughout the nation. So the goal right now is to complete half, or 50%, so 325, so we can begin an asset management plan, which will give us a high-level look at what the need is for each home and how we can address it as a nation. In terms of affordability, the reason that this is important is right now we have 4 villages that are doing completely different programs every single year. So one community might be doing a roofing program for 2 years, and then another community will be doing ramps, and then another community will be doing windows and doors. A key component of having an asset management plan is we can go, okay, out of 750 homes, let's say 420 need new windows and new doors. Let's spend 2 years, use economies of scale. Everybody in each community, or every community, is going to focus on windows and doors for 1 year. So we can bulk buy all the windows that we need. We can bulk buy all the doors that we need. And then we'll have a local workforce do the work that we can depend on, rely on. And so using economies of scale and having our own warehouse for these kind of things, that's the ultimate goal for the asset management plan.
Yeah, I'd like to elaborate on that and provide you some feedback on that. By creating a standardized formula that leads towards energy efficiency in the design, it's critical because then you can track the costs associated, the labor costs attached to it. And by training the guys in building science and building technology and energy efficiency, we'll complement that. And I always say to people, why are you putting a Band-Aid on the problem? Find a solution, and then develop that as a building standard for your community. Forget about what CMHC does and says, or whatever it says. Don't create that building standard for yourself and the community and the elements of the community. That is the key. Not only is that the key, but that also creates economic stability, creates economic opportunities, creates a training program, creates a maintenance program, and an opportunity to educate and train your own people to manage their assets. Because I can build you the most fantastic home, but if you don't educate and train our own people to manage it, it'll go back to where it was. So the training and maintenance program that we have here is also developing into wellness and finance. And those are the things that it's all, I think I see it as 10 daggers coming at the housing person. Because he's supposed to have all the answers, he doesn't. And you have a wealth of knowledge, but you have to get and pass that responsibility back to the people too, because they have a responsibility. By creating something that's energy efficient, sustainable, culturally appropriate for your community it's a win-win. But all those other things, it won't mean nothing until you include the people that you serve. We're public servants. I accepted that role. I accepted the role 35 years ago. And I'm just paying it forward, but a lot of things have changed.
I like what you had to say about educating our people on how to take care of their assets. It's pride of home ownership, but not being homeowners, especially as renters when we build social housing, is really important. And then taking people through that graduation of, not having a home or sharing a home, and then becoming a renter, and then moving them into their own home. I feel like that's a really important educational boundary that some people have, is that we don't have those, that housing spectrum is not all represented in all of our communities. So it's really hard to create responsible homeowners when we don't give them the opportunity to learn along the way.
That's right. Meet them where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know that we created videos. I created a booklet, but we created videos. We created some things with Fraser Basic Council, with ITA, BC Housing. They're all on the Nuxalk website. People can access them. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel again. And that drives me crazy. Simple form, keep politics out of it, build to complement your elements and the cultural lifestyle of your people. with sustainable, durable products. I think that's, in saying that, and utilize what resources you can, like invest in your own people to do that. So I think that's really key, but health and wealth and finance is a goal that we all have to address, because that creates balance in this world. I think what are you going to do differently? Like I said, not doing what we did for the last 20 years, because that's craziness to spend all that kind of money and doing something that would never work. That doesn't work for your community. So I think I'm going to hand it back over to Tom. Tom.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. There was so much insight and wisdom there. Yeah, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think a lot of people would have got a lot from there. It's great to have drawn on your lived experience of how you've overcome barriers. Yeah, just to kind of summarize some of the poignant ones that came up for me. We should never be in a position where people are making that decision between food and fuel, heat or eat. And that's an important reminder in why we do our work as well. There's lots of benefits, whether that's climate, whether that's people's health, but that's always a one which I think can ground us a lot. And I think one point which came up from you, Richard, as well, is that we're creating careers, not jobs. We need, when we're thinking about energy efficiency, we want to set people up for life, not just the kind of quick fix. There was loads there. I mean, trying to keep politics out of it was a very important one. Yeah, and I also just want to acknowledge, before we go into a couple of, we've got a little bit of time for kind of Q&A. I also just want to acknowledge some great comments in the chat box as well. For example, Gil Davis, recognize that beyond some of the obvious co-benefits, by doing kind of more work within the energy efficiency and housing and safety inventory space, his community were actually able to lower their annual insurance costs. So, there's kind of costs which can be lowered, which we're not, we don't necessarily directly consider with kind of energy efficiency, but yeah, there's enormous kind of co-benefits which fall outside of that, including health as well. And there's lots of kind of comments around kind of creating healthier homes, and that's kind of essentially a big part of the work that we're trying to do. I think Gail Andrews made a great point around the nation's looking to do better work now, and now it's being kind of highlighted there to address kind of retrofitting and remediations to old homes. Thinking this is a project that can that we can move forward now, rather than because we're only going to have to retrofit or construct further down the line if we don't see this as a kind of immediate issue. And Leah's also stumbled across some great projects, which involves kind of 5 indigenous architects who work with 5 different communities, and designed homes using local materials, multi-generational housing, minimizing waste. And it sounds like super innovative projects. So what I'll do is make sure any kind of projects, videos, articles that are referenced in this call are kind of highlighted, and I'll send those out to attendees so they can get them kind of easily. Yeah, we've also had 1 or 2 questions within the Q&A as well. I know Tara had a question around heat pumps.
Very efficient.
Yeah.
Very efficient. I think I want to say some. Sorry to interrupt you, Tom, but
no,
heat pumps, I think, are a good solution for many, because it's heating and cooling, very efficient. And on a scale of 1 to 10, where would still say 2, right? The way I look at it. But heat pumps, do the research. I think it's probably one of the best solutions. Go ahead, Tom, sorry.
No, thank you. And yeah, there's lots of incentives out there for heat pumps at the moment as well. So it just makes that offer or that heating system even more attractive at the moment. Drae, I don't know if you had anything to add around heat pumps. Have you had any experience of implementing this?
Richard touched on it earlier, and when you retrofit a home to make it more energy efficient, especially the air tightness and insulation and preventing heat loss, and you have a heat source like wood stove that is so intense when it starts, you create moisture issues, you create heat issues and expansion and retraction. So you need something that's efficient like a heat pump. That being said, that also works transversely, where if you have a home that's not very well insulated, it's not very airtight, it doesn't hold heat very well, and you try to use a heat pump, it's going to be working over its capacity. So you need to make sure that you have a home that's capable of being able to use one in the first place. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, when you're doing the retrofit like that, you have to create that, application is critical. Air tightness is critical. Natural ventilation is critical. And material selection also critical. But once you create that environment, you have to complement it too with the proper training and proper ventilation practices put in place. It's very, very important. And that's why I said education is very, very important in the designs of new homes, because one of the mottos that we heard as 1980s, or I think it was R2000, correct me if I'm wrong, Leo Hebert, that was R2000 homes, wasn't it? They created air tightness, and that created a lot of negative impacts on the modest criteria of housing. Go ahead, Leo. I don't think he can talk, Tom. Well, there you are.
You want me to say something?
Yeah, and was that R2000 homes?
Yeah, that was R2000, and it was just so tight. And when I first started doing this in the early 80s as well too, how our people used to live in the homes, that it was fairly drafty, and it was wood heat, and then it was to control the heat, gets too hot, open the windows or open the doors. Right. So it's really important to educate what you guys are saying about educating people about how this is a different way of living in that house. You have to change the way things are operated. So yeah, when R2000 came in, we never spent enough time educating people about how much it's going to change. You can't just open the windows and doors when it's time to make cool things down or whatever, right? So it's, yeah, anyhow, awesome stuff, you guys, Richard and Drae, really good stuff. Thanks I really appreciate being here to listen to this. It's awesome.
Yeah, we have and I think Tom touched on it earlier, we have a group of people here, Gil Davis, Ernie Westgarth, and Chris Alphonse, Bud Mack, myself, and a few others that have joined, created a energy group, and these will be energy by First Nation, and Tom has access to that information. But they're a group of guys that have been trained in some of the building science and building technology part of it, and we're in May 24th, we'll be meeting in BCIT to kind of capture more training, and then they'll be able to travel about the communities as advisors and help you invest in a new home and design a new home, but create a energy efficient home. That's the big picture that we wanted to see. And and their First Nations people. The background of the people, the builders and inspectors, and they've seen what I've seen, and they're selected because of their knowledge and skills. So that's what we're working on right now. I think, Tom, if there's any other questions out there, they can probably send that to you, or
Yeah, exactly. We can, yeah, we'll probably look to wrap things up here. We've, it's an hour and a half is a long time for a webinar, but I just touch on what Richard mentioned there about the trainer program. So just for folks who aren't aware of the program, as Richard mentioned, we have some trainees and cohort members on this call, but Fraser Basin Council and Richard Hall have been co-delivering this program, which essentially, aims to kind of build skills and knowledge in energy efficiency, building and construction. And we're towards the end of the training element. I think Richard highlighted that we've got our last kind of in-person workshop over at BCIT, which we're all really excited to get down. But the second element of that program is where we'll actually go out and deliver essentially kind of energy efficiency 101 workshops across kind of 8 First Nations communities. And essentially we'll kind of be introducing energy efficiency practice, whether that's kind of building homes or maintaining, or even a focus on kind of resident behavior. And the idea is that we'll kind of go out and deliver these workshops between June and September with the kind of 8 cohort members that we've that bring lots of experience, but also that we've been working with to kind of train around some of these topic areas as well. Some of those folks on the call, like Richard mentioned, Gil Davis, Leo Hubert, and Chris Afonso. And yeah, I suppose the offer is out there to anyone who thinks would benefit from having these folks down to deliver a kind of half-day workshop. If that's something that interests you, then feel free to reach out to us separately, and we can look to connect you with the kind of trainer that will be working within your region. So
I got a question from Leo. Is there what building code did you use as a guide, or did you create your own based on upon your designs? Leo, the building code is a minimum standard, as we all know, criteria, but we created our own building standard to complement our nation. That the code was only as a reference. We never really used it to just as a guide, but we created our own building standard, which means we had a better building practice, better materials list. I think BC Building Standards had a conversation with me, and yeah, I'm glad to sit down and help them. There's another question there, Tom, on the chat box.
Yeah, I can respond to that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I've got that one covered. But essentially, yeah, Richard, but yeah, it's open to across BC. We've got folks and trainees that are kind of working across across all the regions, whether that's up north, the interior, and yeah. So if you're interested in us delivering the training to your nation, we can make that work, absolutely, as long as it's in BC. That's the main requirement.
Yeah, the people that were selected to participate on this energy were two from the north, 2 from the south, 2 from the interior, and 2 from the central coast of BC. They were selected because not only the vast experience, but we wanted a different insight of their region and how we can blend and incorporate their designs into some of the forums that we'll have. Like I said, the interior is different from the coast, and northern BC is different from the Vancouver Island. So that's why I created that that spectrum of people. Another one from Alberta, I don't know.
Yes, and Bruce, I'll follow up with some contact suggestions for some folks and organisations that we're familiar with around Calgary area as well. So I'll make sure to follow up with that. But on that note, I think we'll look to wrap things up. If you have any kind of more questions or any follow-ups, then feel free to send them my way, and I can make sure I can either respond to them myself or make sure they go to the right folks. But I'll follow up with some of the links, videos, and anything that was kind of talked about in this webinar as well. And yeah, we can I'll also send out a recording of this session when we've got a chance to kind of download it and edit it. But yeah, it was a fantastic session. Big shout out to both Drae and Richard for providing some amazing insight. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming down. And I hope you can send your thanks on to Richard and Drae for taking time out of their days to kind of work towards this. It's been a great session.
We did some doixitness. Thank you all very much. That's all I have to say.
You're welcome, Drae.